Hello my dears, today we are going to discuss another topic which is important for the exam point of view. For the foundation to NEET level, there is an exchange of gases in the respiration. There is a topic which is breathing of gas exchange in the 11th standard, okay, from the respiration. Respiration, breathing and exchange of gases. This is the chapter in the 11th standard for NEET. Okay, guys, exchange of gases is the topic today's session. What are the gases? What are the gases here involved? That is oxygen and carbon dioxide. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are the gases exchange between the mediums where they can exchange. Where they can exchange from where to where. Okay, from where to where the gases exchange. Gases are the oxygen and carbon dioxide. We are going to discuss exchange of gases today class. Okay. Exchange of gases. The gases are what? One, oxygen, and second one is CO2, carbon dioxide. Okay. Oxygen, where it is produced? Who produce oxygen? Plants can produce oxygen. Plants can produce oxygen. Where in the atmosphere. Atmosphere, where they can produce, plants can produce oxygen in the atmosphere. Who can produce carbon dioxide? Who can produce carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide who can produce mean tissues can produce carbon dioxide. Where? In the animals or plants. Tissue can produce carbon dioxide. So these gases, where they can produce from, they can exchange into the another part. Okay, this is called breathing. Breathing and exchange of gases. Breathing, there is a exchange between the two gases in the two spaces. So here, just look into here. In the atmosphere, oxygen produce, in the atmosphere oxygen produce, that can be enter into the human body, mean enter into the lungs. From the lungs they enter into the blood. From the blood they enter into the tissue. Finally oxygen reach tissue. Just look into here. This is atmospheric air enter into the lungs. From the lungs they reach blood vessel, they reach blood, and from the blood finally they can reach tissue. The oxygen which is enter into the lungs, from the lungs they can reach blood, from the blood they can reach tissue, oxygen. There is a hemoglobin in the blood, they can carry the oxygen into the tissue. Okay? Yes, this is the oxygen exchange. And here, just look into here, guys, this tissue utilize oxygen and produce carbon dioxide, CO2 in the tissue. In the tissue, how mean? In the tissue, what happened? This oxygen, they can bar glucose, mean they can break down the glucose, and glucose nothing but it is C6H12O6. This is the carbon which is produced as CO2 and release energy. So in the tissue there is a carbon dioxide produced. This is the carbon dioxide production from the oxygen and glucose. So there is a tissue which is produce carbon dioxide, oxygen utilize and produce CO2. Here oxygen utilize, produce CO2. Every tissue is produce CO2. This CO2 enter into the blood vessel, into the blood. That is the blood which is this is oxygenated blood, this is deoxygenated blood. This is finally reach lungs. The CO2 which is reach lungs, here CO2 enter into the blood and finally they exit out in the exhalation. Inhalation, the gas which is oxygen enter into the inhalation, carbon dioxide exit in the inhalation through the blood. This is deoxygenated blood. This is oxygenated blood. Just see here, from the lungs, the oxygen which is enter into the blood carry the oxygen into the tissue. Tissue can utilize the oxygen to release the carbon dioxide. That is the carbon dioxide which is produced in the tissue that can be transferred into the blood, that is deoxygenated blood. The blood, that carbon dioxide they can carry forward into the lungs. Lungs can filter and the carbon dioxide exit out. This is exhalation and inhalation. The exchange of gases, where they can exchange here, just look into here carefully. Yeah, first exchange between the lungs and blood, the oxygen, and second exchange between the blood and tissue, the oxygen. If come to the carbon dioxide, between the tissue and blood, between the blood and lungs, there are two mediums there is a exchange of gases. Here first medium is between lungs and blood. First phase, first medium between the lungs and blood, oxygen. Second medium between the blood and tissue, the gas which is exchange. Second medium between the blood and tissue. Tissue use the oxygen and release carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide also between the tissue and blood and lungs. Okay, there is an exchange. Who can help for the exchange? Who can help for the exchange? There is a pressure. There is a pressure created, that is the pressure to binding the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the carrier pigment. Hemoglobin is carrier pigment of these gases in the blood. Partial pressure is helps the hemoglobin binds with these gases. How much partial pressure is created? The oxygen binding with the hemoglobin, and how much partial pressure created? Carbon dioxide binding with the hemoglobin. We are going to discuss. I hope you guys understand this. Okay, I hope you guys understand this. Okay, nothing but there is a exchange of gases which is carbon dioxide and oxygen. Oxygen produced in the atmosphere that can be reach lungs. From the lungs they can reach blood to reach tissue. Tissue use the oxygen to break down the food particle. They can release the carbon dioxide, which is released in the tissue. The carbon dioxide transport into the blood by the deoxygenated blood, that is reach finally lungs. Lungs can purify again to turn into the oxygenated blood, which is oxygen bind in the lungs with the hemoglobin. Carbon dioxide bind in the hemoglobin, which is in the tissue. Okay, all over here depend on partial pressure. Partial pressure is what? Okay, we are going to discuss. I hope you guys understand the mediums which is between the lungs and the blood, between the blood and tissue. There is a exchange of gases. Okay, yes. Okay, yeah, exchange of gases, mainly the alveolus nothing but lungs. Okay, there is a structural functional unit of the lungs we can call alveoli. Okay, are the primary site of exchange of gases. That is, the gases are O2 and CO2 exchange in these sites by the simple diffusion, mainly based on the pressure concentration gradient. Yeah, just looking this is the alveolus. Okay, the oxygen which is enter into the alveolus from the atmosphere, the oxygen which is enter into the alveolus mean atmosphere to lungs, oxygen enter into the alveolus. Okay, from the alveolus there is a blood vessel. This is the blood vessel. The oxygen which is from the alveolus to they enter into the blood vessel, the process called diffusion. Diffusion. They can diffuse into the blood from the alveolus. Okay. So the pressure concentration in the atmosphere, the partial pressure of oxygen 159 mmHg. Because of that much of pressure, they enter into the lungs. In the lungs, the partial pressure is 104 mmHg. That is the partial pressure of oxygen. That is enter into the blood. Blood is oxygenated blood. If the oxygen which is enter into the blood, oxygenated blood, turn into the oxygenated blood. That is the partial pressure which is 95 mmHg. mmHg. Finally, this blood they can reach tissue. They can reach tissue. The oxygen can transport into the tissue. The oxygen transport into the tissue. Tissue utilize oxygen. The partial pressure of oxygen in the tissue is 40 mmHg. Tissue, the oxygen is 40 mmHg. Partial pressure of oxygen in the tissue is 40 mmHg. And tissue use the oxygen produce CO2. Okay? Yeah. CO2 produce here in the tissue, CO2 produce. The partial pressure of CO2 in the tissue it is 45 mmHg. That's why oxygen release hemoglobin and bind with CO2. CO2 is partial pressure is higher than oxygen in the tissue, not in the lungs. Okay. Oxygenated blood which is 95 mmHg of oxygen, which is 40 mmHg of CO2 in the oxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood, if it is utilize the oxygen, the blood is turned into the deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood, the partial pressure of oxygen which is 45 and oxygen partial pressure which is 40. Oxygenated blood which is 95 mmHg. Deoxygenated blood, there is a oxygen in the deoxygenated blood, oxygen 40 mmHg and CO2 is 45 mmHg. Finally, the deoxygenated blood reach into the lungs. That is the lungs as oxygen which is 104 and CO2 is 40. Just look into here. The pressure concentration by individual gas in a mixture of gases called partial pressure. Individual gases in the atmosphere, there is a nitrogen, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, and there is a oxygen, argon, krypton, xenon, radon. These are the gases. All our mixture of gases, individual gas, every gas has their own partial pressure called partial pressure. Okay. Just here, in the respiratory gas, mean atmosphere, oxygen is 159 mmHg, carbon dioxide is 0.3 mmHg in the atmosphere. If come to the lungs, alveolus, oxygenated blood has 104 mmHg, carbon dioxide is 40 mmHg. Deoxygenated blood, oxygen is 40 mmHg, carbon dioxide is 45 mmHg. Oxygenated blood, the partial pressure of oxygen 95 mmHg, the carbon dioxide 40 mmHg. In the tissue, oxygen 40 mmHg, carbon dioxide 45 mmHg. These are the pressure gradient created the transport of gases. They can binding with the hemoglobin. They can binding with the hemoglobin due to this partial pressure. If the high partial pressure, they created binding with hemoglobin. Low partial pressure, they can lose the binding with the hemoglobin any particular gas, either oxygen or carbon dioxide. I hope you guys understand here. Okay, next slide. Just here, look into here. This is the alveolus, mean lungs. Lungs. Okay. This red color, oxygenated blood. Blue color, deoxygenated blood. Okay. There is a partial pressure of oxygen in the lungs 104 mmHg, carbon dioxide is 40 mmHg in the lungs. Pulmonary vein is what? Okay, guys, don't confuse. What is pulmonary vein? This is heart, this is tissue, this is lungs, okay. Okay. The blood which is filtered in the lungs, oxygenated blood, is carried into the left atria. The oxygen which is filtered in the lungs, they can carry into the left atria. The receiving part of the blood vessels into the heart called arteries. Okay? No, veins. Veins can receive the blood from the organs into the blood. That is the vein which is heart, lungs. We can call pulmonology, the study of lungs, pulmonology. There is a veins are carry forward from the organ to hearts called veins, mean pulmonary vein. Okay, pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein carry oxygenated blood into the heart, and there is a arteries, they can carry forward the blood from heart to organs or tissues, other tissues. Okay, yeah, here just look into here, which is the left part is oxygenated blood. The oxygenated blood which is enter into the this first atria, then they can enter into the ventricles, left ventricle. From the left ventricle, systemic aorta, all over body parts, they can carry forward the oxygenated blood. Finally, all over tissue is oxygen can reach tissue. Okay, yeah, this tissue oxygen utilized, they release carbon dioxide as we discussed, like that. They release carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, who the receiving part of the heart, deoxygenated blood receiving part of the heart is atrias. Deoxygenated blood receiving part is atrias, that is the veins. Okay, that is the vein we can call inferior vena cava, superior vena cava. Okay, that is deoxygenated blood, finally they enter into the ventricle, right ventricle. From the right ventricle they reach lungs for the filter. There is a blood vessel which is called from the heart to lungs, there is a blood carry, deoxygenated blood for the filtration. This is the blood vessel called artery, pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery. So here oxygenated blood they can carry forward pulmonary vein and they can finally reach tissue. Okay, oxygenated blood always 95 mmHg, 40 mmHg of carbon dioxide, 95 mmHg of the oxygen. That is why they can carry hemoglobin carry oxygen here in the oxygenated blood. Finally body use the oxygen and release the carbon dioxide. They can carry forward through the veins, the systemic veins, that is deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood, oxygen partial pressure which is 40, carbon dioxide 45. That's why the hemoglobin here carry carbon dioxide, here carry oxygen, here carry carbon dioxide into the heart. From the heart there is a deoxygenated blood carry into the lungs where the pulmonary artery. This is the exchange of gases between the lung, atmosphere and lungs, from the lungs to blood, blood to tissue. There is an exchange of gases, carbon dioxide and oxygen. This is all our topics which is important for the NEET from the foundation level. Guys, we will give you the best teaching from the foundation to NEET. The roadmap between the foundation to NEET, we will give you the important topics every day. Stay updated in the NEET World. Thank you.